Hi there, I'm Irk and this is my channel, Get Irk, and this episode is Boeing about to take off, or is it time to book a different flight? In this episode, I wanted to talk about one of the United States' most venerable and long-lasting institutions, Boeing, ticker symbol BA. Boeing has its hands in a variety of different sectors, including the consumer aerospace sector, as well as defense and space. And in the past few years, it's felt like Boeing has had one bad thing after another, from two unbelievably catastrophic plane crashes to the pandemic reducing demand for its planes, and so much more affecting this company's long-term potential. In fact, there's so much negativity going against Boeing, you might wonder why I'm even making a video about this company at all. However, in addition to being one of the all-time oldest positions in my investments in play portfolio, I personally believe Boeing has a lot going for it into the future. For one thing, the airplane manufacturing sector is an oligopoly of just two manufacturers really, Boeing and Airbus. So this means that even if Boeing's come under hard times, there's not really anywhere for airlines to go to buy the planes they need. In fact, the wait time to get a delivery of a plane is measured in years, not months. So if you leave the queue, you have to start over again at the other manufacturer, and it could be a very long time before your airline gets the new planes that it desperately needs. In addition to that, Boeing has all new management, which is a good thing because going into the two plane crashes, the company had created a culture of real negativity where they were rushing to get products out to service. However, that being said, it does feel like it's just one bad news event after one bad news event when it comes to Boeing. So what we're going to do in this video is we'll take a look at Boeing's fundamentals, and then I'll show you a chart of what I would do if I didn't already hold shares in the company. Boeing currently has a market cap of slightly over $112 billion, and while that might sound like a decently sized company, it's shocking to think where Boeing came from, because it used to be worth nearly $500 billion. One of the biggest challenges weighing against Boeing is its inability to get a lot of its products delivered. Sure, it is making deliveries of the 737 MAX, but the Dreamliner still hasn't been approved, and it just seems like one thing after another is facing this company. In its most recent earnings report in January of 2022, Boeing has once again reported yet another giant loss, with an earnings per share of negative $7.15. And while one of the major reasons that I initially invested in this company was because of its dividend, Boeing had to cut the dividend in March of 2020, and there's really no sign of when it will be back. Over the very long term, it is a sure thing that Boeing will bring back its dividend because it's one of the key parts of this company, but there's no real way of knowing when it's going to happen. So the long and the short of it when it comes to Boeing is that this is a very long-term investment. Sure, everything I talk about is always in terms of long-term investing, but when it comes to Boeing, the question is whether or not this Titanic will turn around anytime soon. There is a potential positive catalyst that if China decides to put in a large order of planes, that Boeing will suddenly take off in terms of its stock price, but until that happens, we're going to be looking at a very slow growth trajectory for this company into the future. With all that being said, let's take a look at Boeing on a chart, and I'll give you a buying plan of what I would do if I didn't currently hold a position in the stock. So let's start by drawing a Fibonacci retracement from Boeing's low during the pandemic to its high in 2021 so we can develop levels for the stock. You can see that because Boeing is a very old institution, that it has a lot of price action and therefore really does respect the Fibonacci retracement levels. You can see that it found a lot of support at the 23.6% retracement level, down to the 38.2% retracement level, and now it just bounced off the 50% retracement level down here at $183.78. So if I was going to start investing in the company, I'd probably use this low down here at $185.26 as my first buy. After that, I would go into the past, and you can see that there's a lot of support, the 61.8% retracement level, and I'd probably use this point right here as my next buy at $162.25. After that, while you do see a lot of support at the 78.6% retracement level, you can also see that Boeing found support above it, so I'd probably use this day here at $143.38 as my next buy. And even though Boeing has found a lot of support at the 78.6% retracement level, you can see that it often pulls through it, so I'd probably use use this day here at $123.83 as my next buy. After this point, you're looking at a large gap until it gets down to its $89 pandemic low, and looking back here, I'd probably use this point maybe here at $101.25 as my next buy, with $89 being my low. If Boeing actually dropped all the way down to its pandemic low, I probably wouldn't buy below that. The reason Boeing went that low is during the pandemic there was actually a concern that Boeing might have to declare bankruptcy. And before you think that can't happen with an old American institution, it's important for our younger investors to remember that General Motors did go bankrupt, and every single stockholder was zeroed out when that happened in the great financial crisis in 2008 and 9. Even though you can buy GM stock right now, if you held it before it went bankrupt, you have zero value right now. So in the unlikely outcome that Boeing could declare bankruptcy, you have to remember that you must always be risking money that you're willing to lose in its entirety. Now, this is no different than any long-term investment you might hold, but with Boeing, because it did come so close just 2 years ago, it's worth keeping that in mind. I initially started my position in Boeing back on Valentine's Day of 2012 with my first buy at $79.58. And problems aren't unusual for Boeing. This was at the time where they had lithium-ion battery fires on their planes. So a few months after I bought, when Boeing really sold off because of the bad news, I made my second buy on June 21st of 2012 at $70.10 a share. Back then, I was only dividing my allocation into two, so this did give me a full position in the stock with a per share cost of $75.28, which represented a discount of negative 5.4% from my first buy at $79.58. And from here, it was time to let Boeing do its thing. Before the two plane crash catastrophes that really decimated Boeing's reputation, the stock hit an all-time high up here at $446.01. And before the pandemic started, I had lowered my per share cost in my position to negative $624.60 a share. A negative per share cost indicates that I've pulled all the capital out of the position in addition to $624.60 per share, as well as the value of each share. And even though Boeing had already taken a big hit from its all-time high, the pandemic was no friend to this stock, as it basically attacked every element of Boeing's business model. You can see as Boeing sold off, I did add to my position at different points, with a buy on February 25th of 2020 at $306.40, a second buy on February 28th at $277.07, and a third buy on March 9th at $232.35, the three buys raising my per share cost to negative $413.72. At this point, you can see I went hands off. Even though Boeing made it all the way down to $89, I didn't make any additional buys, and it was because in mid-March, the news that Boeing could declare bankruptcy came out. And since Boeing had been such a long-term holding for me, I had no interest in turning a winner into a loser. So rather than adding any additional into the position, I decided to remain hands-off. I didn't sell any more of the position, but I didn't add to it until we heard more. And after Boeing bottomed, we did hear more. They did get the financing they needed, and the bankruptcy risk, at least at that point, was taken off the table. So I made my next buy on May 4th at $126.99, which raised my per share cost to negative $372.32. And from there, I decided to let Boeing go for a little while to see what kind of price action it would give us. Since my position in Boeing was nowhere near a full allocation, I continued to add to it throughout 2021 with a number of buys. My first buy on January 25th at $203.41. My next buy on April 20th at $234.66. Another at July 15th at $222.21. And three more, one on October 26th at $208.19, November 26th at $197.77, and my most recent buy on December 17th at $188.98. The combined buys raised my per share cost up to negative $192.80. And from there, we get to see what Boeing did during the January 22 sell-off. You can see that Boeing's most recent low at $183.77 created a new low. It broke through the support it had had previously. Because of this, I looked at the past price action in Boeing and decided that my next level of support would be around here, around $160. Since I have the luxury of taking so much profit out of this position, it's still one of the most profitable positions in the entire portfolio. I also have the luxury of adding to it a little bit higher, so I'm a bit more aggressive, giving my next price target $162.20. However, as I did say in the buying plan portion of this video, if Boeing sells off to its pandemic low, after that point I will be hands off from there on in. Because Boeing is one of only 2 companies and has an oligopoly on the aerospace space, I do believe this is an excellent long-term investment, especially when you factor in the other sectors Boeing has exposure to, including defense and space travel. While it could be a rocky road to see exactly how long it'll take before Boeing really starts taking off, I think this is a really good long-term holding for anyone who's looking at a really long time horizon. For example, for me, I'm looking at least 20 years where I'll be holding this stock. And remember, you can follow all my moves in Boeing and all the positions in my investments in Play portfolio 100% for free at my website, www.getirk.com. Thank you for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.